This week on the Brody File, time for the midterm. Are Republicans in line for an A? And will Democrats fail? Analysis on the way. Plus, the fight to protect religious liberty in America. Talk with one of the country's top leaders.
If you're a person of faith, you will be attacked. So you need to make up your mind on whether you're going to stand for your faith or not.
Also, Rick Santorum is here, and our Brody File inquiring mind wants to know if he's going to take the presidential plunge.
And we need someone that can excite the Republican base, who's not ashamed of what we believe in, who's willing to go and play offense on those issues, not just play defense. I'm sick and tired of supporting presidential candidates who want to play on half the field.
The Brody File has a full tank. Rev up the engine, folks. We're next. And welcome to the Brody File, everybody. Well, look, the midterm elections are here, and the Brody File is really pumped up. I mean, we are so pumped up that we've been working out at the gym. I mean, that is how, look at me, that's how excited we are about these midterm elections. Actually, you know who's pumped up? The GOP, that's right. Time for one last check on the Brody File's current midterm grades. All right, let's check the big map because, look, it's all about control of the Senate. The GOP needs 6 seats to wrestle control away from the Dems. And here are the key 9 toss-up states to watch on election night. We've got New Hampshire, Kentucky, Iowa, North Carolina, Arkansas, Louisiana, Georgia, Kansas, and Colorado. You know, if the GOP starts to sweep many of those, then watch out. The GOP is going to be catching a wave on election night. Now, the Brody File is really watching Iowa. Republican Joni Ernst is in a position to steal a Senate seat from Democrats out there. She's in a neck-and-neck battle against Democrat Bruce Braley. Braley was the favorite going in, but Ernst, who's a farmer, has used clever advertising to make it a race.
I'm Joni Ernst. I grew up castrating hogs on an Iowa farm. So when I get to Washington, I'll know how to cut pork. I'm Joni Ernst, and I approve this message because Washington's full of big spenders. Let's make them squeal.
Let's make them squeal. I love that. It's going to be a great race in Iowa and also so many different states on election night. So, time to break it all down. Yes, a Brody File commentary. All right, look, I know, you can't wait for midterm election night. I mean, you're canceling date night, you're putting the kids to bed early so you can have complete concentration. All right, I'm being a little sarcastic, but folks, the stakes are high. If the GOP takes back the Senate, then President Obama's legislative agenda is stopped dead in its tracks. That's it, kaput. He's officially lame duck. So on election night, the Brody File is going to be looking at 2 very important races. Now, we mentioned Iowa, but here are a couple other states to keep your eye on. North Carolina and Kansas. So first of all, in the Tar Heel state, the night will prove disastrous if Democrat Senator Kay Hagan goes down to defeat. She is the one Democrats are counting on to win, despite Obama's nasty approval rating down in that state. Then there is Kansas. Republican Senator Pat Roberts is going to need to win if Republicans have any hopes of taking back the Senate. Now, Roberts is in trouble, but he can win. It's close. So if both the North Carolina and Kansas Senate races go in the GOP win column, then Democrats might want to head to the local CVS because I hear, this is the rumor on the street, they're running a great special on Excedrin and Pepto-Bismol, and the Democrats are going to need it. All right, look, if that wasn't enough, you can get updates on our election coverage on cbnnews.com, including alerts with the CBN News app and email. We are so hip, we're digital first, are we not? The CBN News crew, myself included, will also be posted on Facebook, Twitter. Coverage on election night will start at 7 p.m. and go until I fall asleep or something along those lines. All right, now to a story that grabbed international headlines. Evangelicals everywhere were none too happy when Houston Mayor Anise Parker subpoenaed the sermons of 5 local pastors. Now, the subpoena demanded that they turn over those sermons that made mention of homosexuality. Well, the mayor has since backed away from the subpoena because folks in the evangelical community joined together and they put a stop to the attack. Many are saying the real time to fight is now, and other evangelical heavy hitters have joined the battle. For example, Duck Power, that's right. Duck Dynasty patriarch Phil Robertson is sending his mighty duck call, wah, wah, wah. Is that a duck call? Anyway, to support the pastors. He's joining former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee for an event. It's dubbed I Stand Sunday. The event organizers are calling on evangelicals to gather there in Houston and stand against political intimidation. This fight over religious liberty, by the way, will require pastors to stand up and for evangelical voters to stand up as well. However, there is a guy on the front lines of this battle, and he's been fighting this for decades. His name, Kelly Shackelford. He's head of Liberty Institute down in Texas. This issue is his bread and butter. He's been litigating these types of cases in court for years. We spoke to him recently about this disturbing trend against religious liberty.
The attack on religious liberty is beyond what anybody has ever seen in this country right now. I mean, as a guy who's been doing these cases for 25 years, I can tell you that it's not only is it increasing, but it's increasing at exponential rates of the attacks. And so the message I would like to get to people is sort of good news. If you're a person of faith, you will be attacked. So you need to make up your mind on whether you're going to stand for your faith or not. But the good news is this country was founded by people who got on boats and came over here because of religious freedom. So the law, the history, the heritage, it's on your side if you're willing to stand up. And that's really what it's about. The future of our country really is being tested right now, because I mean, if you take away religious freedom, I mean, that's the core of why the country was founded. And I think there's a test now. Are people willing to stand up for it?
You've been doing this a long time, and you just talked about how exponentially you've been seeing more cases. This is just, it's out of control. So what do you attribute that to? I mean, is this just a deterioration of the culture? Where does same-sex marriage play into all of this? Because you got the florist, you got the baker, the candlestick maker. I mean, you got them all. What exactly is going on here?
Well, I mean, I think what you said is exactly right. I mean, the culture is moving away from God. And as the culture moves away from a Judeo-Christian, mindset, there is either hostility or just complete apathy for religious freedom. They don't appreciate it. And so the attacks are increasing because people either are anti-religious or they just don't get the importance. And it's really odd because people who, if you ever let the government get in between you and your conscience, which is what religious freedom is ultimately about, even people who don't believe in God, the government's going to be between their conscience and their freedom as well. So if you lose religious freedom, you will lose all your freedom. And sometimes people who aren't of faith don't get that.
Some sage advice from Kelly Shackelford here on the Brody File. All right, up next, our good friend Rick Santorum is with us. Is he going to run for president? The Brody File pesters him with that question when we come back. All right, welcome back, everybody. So the fight for religious freedom is making a move to the big screen. Rick Santorum's Echo Light Studios has produced a documentary, and it highlights the battle for religious freedom. It covers everything from bakers being forced to create wedding cakes for same-sex couples to the debacle over Hobby Lobby and Obamacare. The film features a who's who of evangelical heavy hitters, including Kelly Shackelford, we saw him earlier in the show, Mike Huckabee, Eric Metaxas, and Russell Moore. It's titled One Generation Away, The Erosion of Religious Liberty, and here is a clip.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
Mount Soledad has always been a focal point for the city of San Diego.
It's probably one of the most beautiful memorials we have in this country. It's been there for a long time until it was attacked by the ACLU, saying you can't have this memorial up here, it's federal land. Think of the precedent that sets.
And I'm wondering, when is the lawsuit going to happen that will force us to go to Arlington Cemetery and take down every cross in Arlington.
What do you do with the crosses and stars of David and religious symbols that are in every community of every state of this country?
It is not the government's job to determine which symbols of faith are appropriate and proper, and the Constitution expressly forbids Congress from getting involved, making a law that would be an impediment to anybody's expression.
That is chilling stuff. And by the way, look at that production quality. I mean, evangelicals, we make good movies. Look at that. Look, no doubt the, Santorum has his hand in everything these days. I mean, he's making movies, he's making speeches, and maybe even making a move for the White House in 2016. That is something I asked him about during a recent interview. Have a look.
There are a lot of people who want you to run for president, you know. So, you going to give me a nugget or anything? I mean, can you give me some? What's been going on?
I'm
a nugget?
Yeah, I'm very serious about looking at it. Traveling, getting a lot of encouragement. You know, we have an organization called Patriot Voices, which we're encouraging people to sign up to, and particularly in the early primary states, to show their support. And we're obviously right now looking for folks who might be interested in financially helping us. And we're going to read the tea leaves as much as anybody else and see whether there's an opportunity for us. I think after 2 terms of an inexperienced stargazer of you know, who is disconnected to reality on national security, that having someone with substantial national security experience who views the world in very clear and realistic terms, and who has been on target on a lot of these issues for a lot of years, is something that I think recommends me. And having gone through the experience, been through the mill, been vetted, every crazy thing I've ever said in my life or done in my life, and everybody knows. And you know, we still won 11 states.
Right.
And so I feel like you know, we need someone that can excite the Republican base, who's not ashamed of what we believe in, who's willing to go and play offense on those issues, not just play defense. I'm sick and tired of supporting presidential candidates who want to play on half the field. You know, I don't want to play half-court basketball. I want to play full court. I want them to have to play defense. I don't want to just play defense and try to keep them off the scoreboard. I want to go and try to score. And that means you got to play with all the tools in your shed, and you got to believe those. And we have to stop nominating Republican candidates who don't believe what the Republican Party says they believe in. And I think once you do that, you'd be surprised how many people show up on Election Day, and how many people are looking for authenticity, even though they may not agree with you. They know at least you believe what you say you believe, and that's a good start for a president.
I love it. He has all these basketball. He's like full court defense. No, what do you say? He wants to play full court basketball. He doesn't want to play defense. He's got a lot of tools in the shed. He's got a shot. I mean, that's Rick Santorum on the Brody File. Yet again, definitely sounding like a man who's going to run for president. All right, look, when we come back, what about some of the other potential presidential contenders? We take a look at a few of the men who still may make a move for the White House. Back in a moment. And welcome back to the Brody File. As you know, we like to cover faith and politics on the show. This time, though, we're going to take a look at faith and political correctness. Correctness. What am I saying? And who better than to do that? Well, that's right. You guessed it. She's back, and she's the church lady.
Well, thanks, David. I want to talk to you about Halloween, or as some Christians like to call it, Harvest Day. So, how should Christians celebrate a holiday which originated in paganism? Well, actor Kirk Cameron has some advice for you. He said, Christians should have the biggest Halloween party on your block. Halloween gives you a great opportunity to show how Christians celebrate the day that death was defeated, and you can give them gospel tracts and tell the story of how every ghost, goblin, witch, and demon was trounced the day Jesus rose from the grave. So what do you think? Well, however you decide to celebrate Halloween, just remember, you have the perfect opportunity to tell others about the love of Jesus. You can also check with local churches to see what they're doing. Some have harvest parties. My church is doing what they call a trunk or treat. The kids get dressed up, play games, win prizes, and of course, there's plenty of candy to go around. Dentists probably get lots of business this time of year. David, I'm not sure how you're celebrating Halloween this year, but please don't eat too much candy. We've got a busy week ahead next week with midterm elections. Well, that's all for the church lady for now. Back to you.
Tracy Winborn, the church lady, getting paid extra for that. Well, I don't know if that's really true. All right, coming next, is Jeb Bush going to run for president? Will the Tea Party have a coronary if he does? That story when we come back. And welcome back to the Brody File. You know, we hear a lot about how Rand Paul and Ted Cruz are shaking up the GOP. And they are both causing plenty of 2016 presidential buzz, and we sure have heard plenty from them right here on the Brody File. We seem to talk to them all the time. But what about the so-called GOP mainstream establishment picks for president? It's definitely not Cruz, definitely not Rand Paul. Instead, the guy they're really intrigued with is Jeb Bush. Yes, that's right, another Bush. Sorry, liberals. There are reports out now that seem to indicate that the younger Bush will jump into the 2016 presidential fray. His son George P., not George W., hinted at all of this recently, so it is looking a bit more plausible. GOP mainstream conservatives love him because he's smart, he's measured, and they think he can actually win a general election. Of course, if Jeb Bush gets into the race, he's going to be putting out Tea Party fire after Tea Party fire, whether it's taxes, Common Core, immigration. He's got a lot of holes in the boat. He'll definitely be taking on water. But can constitutional conservatives sink him? That remains to be seen. Now, another guy who GOP mainstream establishment folks love is Chris Christie. They think he also has general election appeal. The Brody File got a glimpse of how he might position himself in a national campaign when we actually spoke to him earlier this year at CPAC. So time now to dip into the Brody File video vault for this instant classic.
It's when they see you get votes from folks in a blue state, like we got 61% of the vote last November and 51% of the Hispanic vote, 21% of the African American vote, they say, well, you can't possibly be conservative. You know, they just look at the record. We've cut spending, we've cut taxes, 6,000 fewer state employees, reformed pensions and benefits. These are all things that conservatives stand for, while at the same time being the first pro-life governor since Roe versus Wade in New Jersey, which they said no one pro-life could ever get elected statewide in New Jersey. This is the media continuing to try to put forward a myth. And so we're just going to continue to talk about our record and let people know that if conservatives talk about what we're for, people listen and they vote for us. When we talk all the time about what we're against, they block us out. We've got to go into places and campaign in places where we're uncomfortable. We can't just keep going to the Chamber of Commerce luncheons, and we can't just keep coming to CPAC. We've got to go into Latino neighborhoods. We have to go into African American neighborhoods. You know, my percentage of the vote among the African American community in New Jersey went from 7% in 2009 to 21% in 2013. I had a woman who came up to me in Orange to say hello, a predominantly African American city in our state when I was campaigning for re-election. And a reporter asked her afterwards, who are you voting for? She said, I'm voting for the governor. I said, why? She goes, because he was the first Republican I've ever seen walk down the street, and I've lived here my whole life. You know, we need to show up, we need to be respectful and listen.
Chris Christie on the Brody File. By the way, he gets more points from the Brody File because he's a Mets fan. We love the Mets here at the Brody File. All right, right now, by the way, that governor, Chris Christie, has his hands full with the Ebola crisis. He is taking some criticism from federal officials because he's sticking by his insistence that healthcare workers like American nurse Casey Hickox, there, did I say it right? Who have worked in Ebola-stricken countries, that they be quarantined for 21 days when they come back to New Jersey.
The reason she was put in the hospital in the first place was because she was running a high fever and was symptomatic. So, you know, if you live in New Jersey, we'll quarantine you in your home. That's always been the policy. If you live outside the state and you're symptomatic, we're not letting you go onto public transportation. It makes no common sense. The minute she was no longer symptomatic, she was released. And that's a common sense approach that the federal government wasn't taking, that we took first in New Jersey and New York, has now been adopted by Chicago, has now been adopted by Maryland. as I said yesterday on the news, this will become the national policy because it's smart, tough, common sense policy.
Look, it's not surprising that Chris Christie is true to form here. He's sticking to his guns. I mean, that is his signature move. And by the way, when Hickox complained that her civil rights were being violated because of this quarantine, Christie's response was, sue me. Love it. All right, speaking of Ebola, we're back next with our Oy Vey moment of the week that will have you downright sick to your stomach. And welcome back to the show, everybody. All right, so this next story made us shake our head and say, oh my goodness, you didn't just do that, did you? But alas, it did happen, and it's our Oy Vey moment of the week. We have a story now for you that passes the legality test for sure, but it fails the poor taste test. How about this for Halloween decorations? A man from Dallas, Texas decided to decorate his house Ebola style. Unbelievable. This guy put up barrels next to his house and it said biohazard on the barrel. And he surrounded his yard with yellow caution tape. He also put white tape on his doors and windows and marked it a quarantine zone. Hysterical. Really, really funny. I mean, really? Forget about too soon. How about not at all? I mean, oi gewalt. The homeowners say it's just in all fun. It's just in good fun. That's all he said. And the Brody File says, sorry, not funny. Actually, it's the opposite of funny. So that would be unfunny. And it's not hilarious. That would be unhilarious. And it's not witty. That would be, that's right, unwitty. Oi gewalt. That does it for us. Have a great week. God bless. Don't forget to vote this coming week. Midterm elections. Ho-ho. See ya. Bye-bye.
They're the original Islamic terrorist group. They spawned Al-Qaeda and Hamas. They're America's next great enemy, and they're in your backyard. If you want to understand the war on terror, you must first understand the Muslim Brotherhood. Pick up my new book, The Brotherhood, America's Next Great Enemy. Available at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold from coast to coast.